Hello everyone, welcome to Carrow Road, looking all green and yellow. Happy Saturday afternoon to you, welcome to a bit of a video verdict. It's finished here 3-0 to Newcastle United, which pretty much does tell the story. I mean, it would be tempting to just wrap up what I'm doing now, but I probably best not. In case you're wondering, that is Dean Smith walking home. Behind me, Penny for his thoughts at the moment. I think he, speaking to him after the game, it was quite clearly pretty raw. I think he was trying to be a little bit careful with what he said, because probably one of those classic cases where, of course, the manager and head coach, whoever is responsible for so much, yet literally there's only so much he can do, and there are certainly things he can't do out on the pitch for the players, which he has said as much himself. And today was that case in point, really. I would have to say I thought Norwich actually started quite brightly. They looked lively at the start. I had some good possession. They looked confident. They looked purposeful on the ball. Probably, I would say both sides created the same sort of quality of chances in those first opening exchanges. Norwich had a really good chance in terms of Kieran Dowell. I thought Teemu Pukki did really well. He didn't do enough to maybe make the most of the initial chance in the first place. That then became an issue because the chance for Kieran Dowell, I mean, Teemu did really well to cut it back to him, but it does come slightly behind Kieran, which maybe because he's slightly overeager with his run, potentially, and maybe would have been better to just hold it off a little bit. So when he meets the ball, he's basically leaning backwards to kind of deal with it, and that sort of scoops it up over the bar. So it is a good chance. And I think, to be honest, from that point on, Newcastle really did take control of the game. They were the better side for the rest of the half, and then they scored 2 goals, I think, towards the end of the half, and then one more in the first 4 minutes of the second half. And that was game over, although, you know, as has been the case for most of the season, it felt like game over after the first goal, and that's kind of it. And then the rest of the game was just a non-contest and irrelevance. Really, it meant nothing to anyone. We got to see Christos Jolis come on, and he showed a bit of muscle. John Rowe came on and made a couple of rookie errors, but also produced a couple of good through balls and had a chance late on where he hit the target, but it was quite an easy save for Dubravka. Teemu Pukki kept running. But as I said, Newcastle were really coasting at that point. And some people have said to me that Newcastle are quite an average side. Potentially, they've got good players. Guimaraes, I think, is a lovely player. He clearly has got a lot about him, and he scored a wonderful, or produced a wonderful finish for the third goal. But, you know, I've spent all season talking about there's only so many ways you can say how Norwich aren't good enough for something. And here we are again. Norwich just make mistakes. They don't take. And when they do make them, and they do have the ability to make them, so you know, that's why they're where they are and why they'll get relegated potentially next weekend now, I think, when they are at Aston Villa, which I suppose, looking at the narrative now, would kind of sum it up. Maybe for Dean, potentially. If I was to break down the goals briefly, the first goal, I've never really seen a collective switching off like it. Everyone's just so passive and standing in position and not really reacting, and then they do all react, and they all react in the wrong way together, so that they end up leaving Joelinton at the far post, who scores a wonderful finish. Doubled his league tally for the season, I think. Pete Raven told me on Twitter. I haven't checked it out myself, but I know that Joelinton scoring is a novelty in itself, because it hasn't happened for a lot of games. So for him to score twice this afternoon probably sums it up a little bit. But it was a great finish, in fairness. But Norwich kind of gifted that situation and you know, room. Dean Smith kind of pinned it on the way Dimi Yanulis reacted, I think. I think it was that goal he was talking about. He could potentially have been talking about the second one. I'm not sure. I'll have to watch him back. But I think it was the first one. Him and Sam Byram then sort of steps in, and the centre-back step in. Ben Gibson had been dropped for his errors at Old Trafford. So Christoph Zimmermann started, but he then got substituted because Dean Smith felt Norwich needed more pace in the back line, which is when Max Aarons came on, and Sam Byram switched to centre-back. So yeah, it all happened really. but the game was dead by then anyway. So a difficult reintroduction for Zimbo, given the scenario. He hasn't played for a long time, and in fairness, if Norwich weren't coping with Newcastle's pace halfway through the game, you feared that was an issue, and you feared that would be a Newcastle strength, and I don't know who's quicker out of Zimbo and Ben, but neither of them would strike me as particularly quick, so it would have probably been an issue from the very start as well. But there we go. Maybe that's just it's one fire at a time. Maybe. No one played particularly well today, so it's probably not even worth highlighting it. The second goal then is there's just a curious gap, and actually Willock and Jacob Murphy make the same run, but it's still in between, I think, Yanulis and Zimmerman in a load of space. Murphy ends up winning the ball, gets it. I think he's trying to square the ball. I don't think it's a shot. And then Joel Linton's at the far post to flick it in from a narrow angle, and he had his second goal. And there we are. He was on the pitch for about 20 minutes afterwards, lapping up the Newcastle fans singing to him. They were the only one left in the place, basically. I feared at one moment he would never leave. That was obviously a nice moment for him. And Jacob Murphy had some nice moments as well. He came over and took a corner down here, actually, and got a nice reception from the Snake Pit and Barclay. He did. There weren't many fans left in the ground when he left, but he got some warm applause from them as well. Yeah. I don't really know what else to say about that. That's probably it for the football. Oh, and then obviously the third goal, where Tim Krul, who, ironically, his distribution was actually pretty good today, but he's tried to play the ball in midfield to Kenny McLean. Guimaraes reads it, beats Kenny to the ball. It's debatable, obviously, and they had that debate, Kenny and Tim themselves, over whether Kenny should have reached the ball or whether it was a poor pass. Doesn't really matter either way. A collective responsibility and all that. And Guimaraes' finish is wonderful. And that was 3-0, game over. There weren't really that many. There were still some empty seats come the start of the second half. I feel like 2-0 down at half-time in a game that Norwich said was must-win. That situation meant that some people maybe didn't come out for the second half. By the end of the game, it was considerably empty. And even when Jacob Murphy was trying to sort of applaud those in the Barclay and Stegby who were here, it was literally probably about 50 people. So, I'm laughing. That says a lot, really. It says a lot about where things are. Those who were here at full time. The supporters have had almost nothing all season. In truth, obviously there's been interviews in the last 48 hours, including Stuart Webber's climb and what he said in those interviews. I know all have registered with a lot of supporters. It's been a talking point throughout the ground all day. I don't think it's a talking point that's going to go away. Something I'm going to write about because I have to. And that's where we are. This is a club that's going to get relegated, and it's going to have to work out where its energies lie and how it's going to respond to it. Because the simple idea that this has been good enough, or is acceptable, or is just a matter of reality, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Is rubbished by the performances of both Brentford and Sheffield United on the 2 seasons Norwich have been promoted. But it's also an unsustainable situation or viewpoint when you have 25,000 season or people turning up and 20,000 season ticket holders. Why would anyone pay any money for something that is apathetic? So yeah, lots for everyone here to think about, and I'm sure they'll be thinking about it. But I was sitting next to my colleague Chris Woff, who's down from Newcastle, of course, and he was sort of midway through the second half asking me, so how bad does this performance rank in terms of the others? And it was quite bad. Was it horrific compared to some of the others? Not really. And that's such a damning indictment in itself, isn't it? And yes, I am laughing. I don't think there's anything else left to say, really. Keep an eye on The Athletic, because there'll be obviously some articles over the coming weeks. It does not stop because the football is rubbish. We'll do an On The Ball podcast on Monday. So check out that. And we did one last week. We were back last week, so make sure you've had a watch of that if you hadn't before. I have been getting a bit of stick today for I like to come up with an emoji that sort of represents the visiting team. I've used a big wodge of cash for Manchester City. I've used the Portugal flag for Wolves before because of their hilarious connections with Jorge Mendes. I used a hot dog for Barnsley because they're nicknamed the Tykes and they were in red hot form. So it was like the hot dogs, say hot dog. So, and this time I thought, well, they've basically been given a lot of money from the country of Saudi Arabia, be it, investment or business or the country, however you want to define it. And that's helped them lift themselves into where they are now from where they were. Don't really think there's anything controversial in that, unless obviously you're riddled with guilt that your football club is suddenly thrust into a political situation that you can't answer because it completely contradicts your own maybe beliefs, or it clashes with your love of your football club. And you're hoping that in 5 years' time you're going to be celebrating a title, and then you're not quite sure what you're going to do about that because of what paid for it. If you think I'm apologetic for using a Saudi Arabia flag in my tweets, then no, because it's relevant, and B, if you're offended by it, then you have to get a grip about what's going on, and that's that. Yes, of course I could have used a black and white emoji, just like I could just use a red one every time Norwich play Manchester United, but I didn't. I used an angry face because they're really angry at the moment. And the fact that I'm trying to inject humor into it is maybe not right, because on social media. But there we go. Anyway, just nice to put your view across, isn't it, sometimes? I am not salty, and I am perfectly fine. And I kind of quite like the point that I've made a point. Onwards we go. I will see you. The bottles given up down there, which probably sums it up. I've lost my bottle too, so I'm going to head off now. I'll see you all at Villa Park next weekend. I'll see you for On the Ball podcast on Monday, and I'll see you all during the week. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, look after each other, come up with something really fun to do on Sunday that doesn't involve football. Let's get rid of that. We've seen quite enough of that, haven't we? And apologies if I missed anything, but I'm sure I'll be able to clarify it and bring it all up at a future time. In the meantime, have fun, and I will see you anon. Good night.